This is A Voice, a podcast with Dr. Gillyanne Kays and Jeremy Fisher.
This is A Voice.
Hello and welcome to This is A Voice, Season 11, Episode 11.
The podcast where we get vocal about voice.
I'm Jeremy Fisher.
And I'm Dr. Gillyanne Kays.
And it's happy anniversary to us.
Yeah. How many years?
5 years to the day since we did our first podcast episode.
Wow.
Well over 100 episodes ago.
What an amazing journey we've had.
Yeah. So we're going to actually bring you on the journey because we're calling this one something like Dealer's Choice.
Oh.
We are going to choose our favourite 3 episodes from the 100 plus that we've done so far. Mm-hmm. But before that, we're actually going to start with a little excerpt from the very first podcast.
Oh, okay. All right.
All sorts of things that we did in the first podcast. We did have the jingle. Thank you once again to Connor Tonkinson for that. And we also had the biscuit tin. I don't know if you remember the biscuit tin.
Yes, that was my dad's biscuit tin.
That was your dad's musical biscuit tin. And so we played the little biscuit tin jingle. And in the biscuit tin, we had a whole load of questions that had come up on various courses. And so we decided that we were going to answer some of the questions.
Yeah. Last question.
Do you ask your client to sing the whole song first or work on fragments of it from the beginning? This is very interesting because we actually talk about this on the course, on the Singing Teachers
Online
Online Singing Teacher
Yep.
Training. This is a very interesting one. And because we ask people to submit videos of them teaching, we see every range of this.
We see what you do, people. We see you.
And I think it's really interesting. I have a take on this. You've got to remember that I come from a musician, vocal coach background, even though I now do singing technique as well. And my take is, let's sing the song. I need to know where you are today. If you don't sing anything, and interestingly, if you don't sing anything, you don't even know what the song is going to be, and you go into warm-ups, then you're really going blind. My ideal would be to get somebody to sing at least a verse or a chorus, just to get them into the mood, to get them into the room, and to find out where they are and what they're doing that day, rather than trying to teach from memory.
Yeah. We don't know yet what kind of an audience we're getting for this podcast. But what I will say to you, those of you who are singers and who are looking for good vocal coaches and teachers, if you don't get to sing your song in the lesson, or you're consistently being stopped after a few bars and you never get through your song, I don't think your teacher's really serving you.
You're not being served, no.
I will say from my perspective that it kind of depends if the client has already learned the song and it's something they want to work on. I will generally hear them sing the whole song through to hear where they are with it. Sometimes a client comes in and says, actually, I'm having a problem with this part. And I might listen to that part and then I might go back, because often where there's a problem, it's something that happened 8 bars earlier.
It's not necessarily where the problem is.
Yeah.
It's 8 bars before, I agree.
It's something that you set up.
Yeah.
I think there is nothing more frustrating for a singer than to be stopped after 1 bar over and over again.
Yeah.
That was so fun. Do you know what? I think we were really quite fluent, given it was our first recording.
Well, and also that we had to be very heavily persuaded to get on YouTube in the first place.
Yes,
because
especially me.
Well, also because we obviously put the podcast out on Buzzsprout, which then sends it out to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all sorts of places. Yeah. But we'd made the decision that we were going to put all podcasts on YouTube. So, of course, we had to video everything. And that took some persuading to get us on video in the first place.
And you had a different camera, didn't you? I mean,
Yes.
not the one that we're using now.
Yeah.
So if you do go and watch that one, we look like we're sort of crouched down at the bottom of the screen. It's absolutely
so
hilarious.
funny. We look about 12. It is so funny.
Nice to look about 12, though, isn't it?
It's a long time ago. So on to, what's your first choice?
My first choice was one of the episodes that we did with Victoria Spence, who is a specialist speech and language therapist, And in this episode, we were talking about acid reflux, which I have to say is a big favourite topic of mine.
Oh, can I just say the 2 episodes with Tor Spence were on YouTube the most popular episodes by far.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so this excerpt is June 2022, season 5, episode 4, Acid Reflux with Tor Spence.
I've got a bit of personal stuff to share, which I did warn you about, Tor, which is I first found out that I had acid reflux because what used to happen was I'd start to drop off at night when you first begin to drift off. And then I'd have this weird dry cough. And I remember saying to Jeremy, oh, have I got asthma or something? What's going on? I'd have this little cough. Then I'd drop off again. Then it would happen again. And eventually, of course, I'd go to sleep. Now, across time, what happened was I got a full-on LPR event, which is I woke up feeling like I'd got a swarm of bees in my larynx. It's so painful when you get this spurt of acid. And of course, you're in danger of choking. And it's really unpleasant. And that's when I first realised, oh my goodness, I didn't know acid reflux could do that. And then I started reading about the different types of acid reflux, the lower esophageal sphincter and the upper. And would you like to talk more about that? Because many singers don't know the difference. Well, any professional voice user, to be honest. And they also have some very weird ideas about what to do about it, including things that introduce acid into the larynx because they've been told your stomach obviously isn't making enough acid. True. So therefore, you need lemon juice.
Interesting. Yeah.
Lovely little,
Yeah.
little rabbit hole.
So gastroesophageal reflux is when stomach acid flows back into the esophagus, which connects your mouth and your stomach. So that backwash irritates the lining of the esophagus, and that causes quite typical symptoms of heartburn, indigestion, chest pain, which is quite different sometimes to the symptoms that people get when they get reflux further up. So laryngopharyngeal reflux comes up to the top of the esophagus. Now that can be silent. So you, Gillyanne, it sounds like you had very clear symptoms at night, particularly. A lot of people, we call it silent reflux because it's not what people are expecting of reflux. People are thinking, oh, I don't have any heartburn or indigestion. It can't be reflux, yet they're being woken up in the night by a cough. They've got sticky throat and sticky mucus around that part in the morning, and they're having to cough. Their voice is fluctuating. They're noticing a cough or having to throat clear a lot. And then they end up coming to see ENT, who might have a look at the larynx and either say, oh no, it all looks absolutely fine, or no, there is some inflammation. And then what do you do? And it's a difficult thing. There's no sort of blanket treatment or advice that we can give that suits everyone. It has to be holistic, and we have to take a really detailed history and work out what is in this person's medical history, lifestyle, even the sort of psychosocial elements of it, and what could be exacerbating reflux, and what other causes of inflammation or cough at night that there could be as well. So when it comes to the treatment of LPR, or we could call it these persistent throat symptoms, or perhaps some inflammation that someone's got in their larynx, lifestyle management is very important, and I'll talk through realistic modifications that people can make. So if I'm working with a singer, for example, we'd talk a lot about kind of patterns in sort of eating and meal times. We'll talk about when someone's eating, perhaps in relation to when they're going to bed. We'll talk about even things, diet, what they're eating that may be specifically triggering the symptoms, or, keeping food diaries is sometimes a vital part of that, to recognize the patterns between what they might eat in a certain day or in the evening, and then how their symptoms are. So again, it's that awareness, it's that sort of mindfulness of the sort of lifestyle issues that might be contributing to things. And then, of course, there's the medication side of things. So we know now that for the treatment of LPR, or persistent throat symptoms caused by laryngopharyngeal reflux, that proton pump inhibitors, those medications that are used to suppress acid production, they don't work for persistent throat symptoms. There's some really clear evidence now that these patients who have historically been quite blanketly prescribed PPIs, when they've presented to primary care with such symptoms, we don't want to do that anymore. We really want to move away from that because we know they don't work for throat symptoms.
So interesting, Tor. I knew you weren't a fan of PPIs, but I didn't know that evidence base existed. If there are any papers or anything that you want to share with us at the end that you've read.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your turn, Jeremy.
Okay, so my first choice is what matters to you? Because so much of the time we talk about vocal technique, but it goes further than that. So we're talking about your career, your person, your own health. And so with this episode, this was about shaping your career and making sure that you find time to fit in the things that really matter to you, because your work, your career, your whole life will be so much more interesting and actually so much easier to do if you're doing something that you love. So we spent a whole episode on what is it that you love doing. This is season 8, episode 4 from October 23, What Matters to You.
Okay, so what do we love?
Okay, Jeremy, why don't you start? You, I know, love working with performers.
Absolutely. I've been doing it for more than 40 years now, which makes me sound horribly old. More than 40 years I've been working with performers, and I absolutely love it. I trained as a collaborative pianist. And in fact, I was collaborative pianist by nature as well as by training. And I basically had a portfolio career working all the way around collaborative piano in various forms and various guises. And I've always loved working with other people. I love working with performers. I love working with energy. I like helping people find the best in themselves while I'm playing. And it's one of the things that I do when I'm performing is I actually use the piano part that I'm playing to support, to guide, to lead, to follow, to do all sorts of things.
And don't you use it as well? Because I mean, obviously you play for me sometimes to clarify what it is that the performer wants.
Oh, absolutely.
And also what the music wants. It's kind of a combination of the two, isn't it? And this thing of clarity is really important to you, isn't it, as a coach?
I love clarification. I love helping people work out what it is that they want to do or to be. It's one of my favorite things. I have a load of favorite things, but that's one of my favorites. Okay, so enough about that. What?
And enough about you?
Yes.
Okay.
What matters to you?
This is quite interesting, and it's more than one thing, as I know it is for you too. I need to work with voices.
Yeah.
Voices are absolutely what float my boat, make my heart sing. They always have done. And it's the individual voice that interests me. And where we are at this point in our business development and also in my career, working with individual voices, it doesn't need to be my primary income source. After all, I have been doing it for 45 years. But I think if I stopped doing it altogether, I might lose touch with what it is that I am as a teacher and a musician. And then maybe I might not be as good at advising other people, other teachers, as I want to be.
We have come to know each other's things that matter, and we support each other in those things. And I've known for a very long time that Gillyanne needs to work one-to-one with voices, whether it's all the time or occasionally, it doesn't matter.
Do you know what that calls to mind for me right now? As it happens, I saw an Instagram post this morning from James Sills, and he was quoting someone who said, "Don't follow your passion, it will kill it for you."
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, seriously?
I think follow your interest. Now, that may be coming from me as an ADHD person, where I'm always searching for the dopamine. So the thing is that if I'm doing something I'm interested in, I'm able to do it for a lot longer. So I understand about following your passion, because once you do, it becomes your job, it becomes your work, and you can lose interest. But I still think that you need in your life the things that you love doing.
Yeah. And I hasten to say that James Sills was definitely not in agreement with that.
So what's your next choice?
Oh, one of the episodes that we did with my client, Kate Bassett, who generously came online to talk about her experience of having had a vocal injury, specifically a vocal fold hemorrhage while she was on a cruise, on tour, working, and about her journey with that experience and her journey with me towards returning to vocal health. And of course, this whole thing about helping singers return back to work is one of my very strong interests.
Yeah.
Partly because as a young singer, I also had a voice problem.
It was a very powerful episode, and also Kate is very open about not just the injury but the recovery, and we need to say that she is singing so well at the moment. So this is April 2023, and it is. And I've actually forgotten to look this up. I have a whole spreadsheet of our episodes.
Yeah, what did we
Pages and
call
pages of
this
them.
one?
We called it Vocal Surgery and Beyond, A Singer's Experience, and it was season 7, episode 5. Here's the excerpt.
So tell us about,
Mm.
just give us a little bit of background about the
Yeah.
event.
I was on tour at the time. I was doing an ABBA show that was touring most of Europe, so Germany primarily. So I was out somewhere in far eastern Germany in a dusty theatre. And we were coming to the end of the show, so we were probably 2/3 of the way through. And I went off stage to do a quick change. And during the quick change, something made me cough heavily. I wasn't sick. It came out of the blue. It was a sort of a really heavy, hard cough, something that really made impact. And I was probably hairspray and all of the things that you're doing when you get changed, bending over, sort of zipping up your boots. I didn't think anything of it. I went back on stage to announce something, the next song, you sort of high energy announcement going into that last part of the show. And it was as though someone had muted my voice. There was nothing there. There wasn't even any sort of contact or gravelly sound. It was just an instant, sudden, complete voice loss on stage. That's what happened.
And
Terrifying.
that's so interesting, because what subsequently happened when you got in touch with me was that neither of us really realized that that was the core event.
Yeah.
Because when you were on tour, you did what most people do, which is you kind of adjusted and you tried to keep going. And it was only after a little bit of that you got in touch and said, my voice doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
And I think you emailed me because, we weren't able to even speak at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
The connections. Tell me more about what you did, if you don't mind, in terms of, what did you do over the next few days? Because I think this is so important for the listeners to hear.
Yeah. Right. So I think there was maybe 2 or 3 shows left on that particular leg of the tour. I tried to sort of conserve my energy, just use my voice less in the day to day. You very helpfully sent me some videos of some SOVT for a tired voice. So I was using a bubble, straw bubbling, and sort of, I guess, just trying to sort of gently get to the end of that particular leg of the tour. And admittedly, amidst all of that, probably behaving a little bit chaotically to try and just get through those last shows, which in hindsight obviously was a very bad idea.
How long was it from when your voice cut out completely before you could use your voice at all again?
So after the initial cutout, I remember, just for some context, I was playing Frida in the show, which is actually a sort of a lower range than my voice naturally sits at. But so I remember sort of it did come back, but it was very, very low, and it wasn't, I was struggling. So I had this sort of low voice. So I think I was sort of just singing down the octave initially in at the sort of the initial moment where it happened. And then after that point, I was, I guess, just maintaining, and I was able to sing the show, but obviously my voice sounded husky, tired, very craggy, all the things that you would expect in both speaking and singing voice. But yeah, so I didn't sort of that complete voice loss was sort of momentary, and then and then obviously I had a bad voice quality going forward.
Okay, so that's interesting. And again, very super interesting for singers and teachers to know, which
Yeah.
is because you and I weren't able to speak because of the
Yes.
communication issues at the time with you being on tour. I wasn't able to ask you and listen to your speaking voice quality. So what you're
Yeah.
saying is your speaking voice quality wasn't normal, not just that your singing voice was low and gravelly compared with normal. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I do think, my speaking voice, I mean, this is something we can come to later, but my speaking voice used to get more tired than it does now as a result of, everything we'll talk about coming out of the injury. But, I guess it was more than your average sort of what you would expect to have vocal tiredness on, on a busy tour. It was more than that.
You didn't realize the significance of the coughing and the voice disappearing immediately. And so you did what every performer tries to do, which was you carried on.
Yeah. Yeah.
At what point did you realize you needed help and that this was not going to go away?
It was when I came home and I planned some rest time in. So I had about 9 days at home. And in that 9 days, I had one very small gig that I struggled to cover, it was very low key, sort of low pressure. And I had a recording session. And my voice was unpredictable. It was doing things that it had never done before. Simple things, sirening, missing big parts of your range, and it not being just a little crunchiness. It was, something that was impossible to ignore. Pitch as well was the other unpredictable thing. I don't have an issue with pitch, so sometimes things were kind of coming out. You'd send it one way and it would sort of go in a different direction, and I was thinking, what's happening? This is strange happenings.
And these are very clear signs, and also very unsettling.
They're important signals, and that's when you were able to get in touch with me. And we said that you needed to go to a voice clinic. So something I'd just like to say following on from that, what you can hear is that voice injury can happen to anyone. And yet so many singers go through this sense of self-shame. And this doesn't happen in the sports industry. And if you'd like to hear more about Kate's journey and another singer that I worked with in recovery from vocal injury, you might like to join our teacher accreditation program, because one of the self-guided units is specifically about that. And you can hear a lot more detail about what I did with these two clients, Kate Bassett and Jacob Williams.
Okay, my turn. Right. So my second choice, this came about because we had a review put on Apple Podcasts from Sarah Brown LDN. She gave it 5 stars, and she said about the whole podcast, in fact, the whole series, the topics are really great and interesting as a voice coach to listen to. I particularly like the one about appreciating our own success. And this was the one, season 11, episode 4 from March 2025, that's this year, called Success Amnesia. Are you forgetting your own success? This came about because I'd read about it, I wrote a blog about it because I recognized it. And then you read the blog and said, we have to talk about this. We have to actually dive a lot deeper into it. And it was something I didn't even realize I had until I read about it. And it's one of those moments where you recognize something so clearly and you go, oh, I didn't know that was a thing, but I also didn't know the effects that it had. Success amnesia it's just a really interesting thing. It's when you have achieved something, but it doesn't mean anything to you. You don't even notice that you've achieved it. It's, oh yeah, okay, another box ticked, and on to the next thing. So there's no awareness of the sort of success that you've done, and also there's no celebration of it. And I will say, my life coach, and I've had him for a number of years, has been on at me to do all sorts of things like this. I didn't know that it came under this banner. But I know in the blog, I talk about a very large poster, which in fact I'm looking at right now, which is just above my desk. And I am not the sort of person that would put a poster up. I had to be persuaded to do this. But I did a masterclass in the University of Chichester, and they did an amazing poster of me doing the masterclass. And I just saw it on boards when I was there, and I went, ooh, can I take that home with me? So it's up on the wall. So every time I'm working, every so often, I will look up and I'll go, yeah, you did that masterclass. That was good. Basically, you are at the level that can be invited to do masterclasses. Well done. And it's just a sort of prod for me to remember where I am, what I've done, and some of the successful things.
Yeah, and actually one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about it in this podcast is because it also happens to me, and it happened to me recently. I don't know if you remember, but I was putting together a proposal for a book, an abstract, and it was hard work. And the way that I process is very different from Jeremy.
Yeah.
I will get germs of ideas, little seeds of ideas, and then I start to look at all the different seeds. And at a certain point, they start to make a pattern for me. It's a bit like working with a jigsaw. I hate jigsaws, by the way, but that's the idea. I'll come in piece by piece, and then I think, oh, this is the whole picture. And I absolutely love seeing the connectedness of things. And then everything will drop into place for me. And this is exactly what happened, because I allowed myself some sifting time before I finalised this proposal. And I was absolutely thrilled to bits with myself. And then I said to Jeremy, and do you know what? I've just remembered I had this lovely email from a research colleague back in the summer who said that they'd come across my initial chapter for the Oxford Handbook of Singing called Structure and Function of Singing Voice, I think. And they said such nice things about it. And I'd forgotten that. And I actually went and got the email out and I read it aloud to Jeremy.
I was going to say, I don't think you even told me that email had arrived the first time.
It had just, because so many things were going on in my mind at that point. And I don't know if we've spoken about this, but over the last 2 years, we did get to the point where we were in burnout. For those of you who might not know, one of the symptoms of burnout can be that you develop, hopefully temporary, acquired ADHD. So I started to notice some of the things that Jeremy normally gets that I was getting, and that was one of them.
And also on that topic, success amnesia is one of the things that contributes to burnout, because you have no concept or no awareness that you are good at what you do. You just assume that you're bad at what you do and that nothing has ever worked.
And I think, obviously, we're going to talk about it for music professionals. But in terms of you, Jeremy, because you have at least 100 ideas a day.
Minimum.
And of these, some of them will actually be pretty bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, whether one follows through on those ideas, for instance, in a business situation, is another matter altogether. And that's one of the things we've had to learn to deal with. Yeah. But because you're on to the next idea, you simply haven't realised what you did before. So, Jeremy, thinking to the blog.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about how you see success amnesia in the people you work with, the music professionals, the singing voice professionals, the performers?
The first thing that I notice is the whole moving on mentality, which is, that wasn't anything special. What's next? And there's no pause. There's no moment where you go, I did really well, or that worked, or I'm so pleased that happened, or I'm sure this can lead to something really interesting. There's no pause moment because it doesn't occur to people that there is something there to celebrate. That's the first thing.
Can I just read this? Because I actually really like this paragraph.
Yes.
Success amnesia happens when you consistently forget your own achievements. Okay. Instead of sitting in the glow of what you've accomplished, your brain zoomed straight to what's next? What didn't go perfectly? Yep. Hello, professional musicians.
Yeah.
What don't I feel there yet? wherever there is why don't I feel there yet? As if there's some kind of arrival point. This is something I suffer from as well.
Oh, yeah, me too. For years. It's like, why haven't I made it? And the question is, made it doing what, being what, arriving where? It's really, it's a fascinating thing when you realise that it is a thing.
Yeah, and we as musicians operate in high stakes, high emotional environments, and we do tend to be constantly seeking approval. Teachers, audition panels, audiences, casting directors, and hello, social media.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So why does it become a problem, Jeremy?
Because there's no moment of satisfaction, because you're constantly on the move. There's no settling anywhere. And oddly enough, it's because you don't acknowledge your own skills and sometimes even your own level. And so there's a sort of sense of dissatisfaction that runs through everything. That is not good for you to keep that sense of dissatisfaction going.
So it's going to drain enjoyment.
Yes.
And that's
Burnout.
going to drain your confidence.
Yeah, burnout, the whole burnout thing.
Yeah.
And imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a big thing for artists in general, any kind of artist, anyone working in the arts, because part of the creativity is it's almost like I need to create something, but I don't know if it's any good. And then you're constantly looking outside for people's opinions. And the imposter syndrome is people, if you like, aren't telling me that I'm any good. Sometimes they don't have time to tell you. Sometimes they will tell you a year later.
Yep.
Thank you for telling me. Can you do it at the time? It's much nicer. And also because of that, you disconnect from what you do. You disconnect from the joy of what you're doing and the passion of what you're doing. And again, for artists, it's very important that we can connect with that level of joy and that passion. It's quite a big thing. It has a lot of knock-on effects.
I think it is very easy, as Jeremy said, for people in our profession to forget how good we were. I was watching a video of a masterclass we did a few years ago. Do you mind if I talk just briefly about this?
No, you can.
And it's so nice to sort of sometimes watch yourself again, not in an egotistical way. And afterwards I came to Jeremy and I said, fuck, we were good. I mean, really, I needed to see that at that point in time, which is, we did such a great job.
Yeah.
And it was quite inspiring. I felt inspired by what we did.
You genuinely
Yeah.
forget the things that you did because it's on to the next, on to the next, on to the next.
Yeah.
But you're right. And because we live in a time now where things are videoed and recorded, you can go back and look at yourself. Just as we did. We went back to episode 1. We even looked at what we were wearing, and we're wearing things that are very similar.
But we've upgraded.
We have
since then.
upgraded.
Yes. Okay.
So what is your next one?
My turn. Yes. So this is Series 9, Episode 9, with the guest Guro von Germeten, called The Omnivorous Voice, Navigating Taste. I don't think I've got the whole title there, but if you find the episode, you'll be able to read that. Now, I came across Guro because I was acting as an opponent in her PhD, so I had to read that. And I was absolutely fascinated by the way that she unpacked the notion of taste. In this episode, we talk about how important it is for us as trainers and also as listeners, but particularly as trainers, to understand our taste, to understand where we're located in our tastes, and to recognize those as a kind of filter, while at the same time celebrating what those tastes bring to you.
I think even recognizing that you have a filter at all is quite something. I think it was one of the most fascinating things that she talked about was recognizing and realizing that we all have filters, and they come from our experience, and they come from our background, and they come from the way that we were brought up, and also the things that people have said to us in the past.
Yes.
And the excerpt that we've chosen is a little story of what someone said to her in the past, and we're going to say no more about it.
I also want to say something about my favourite line from your PhD, because you talked a lot about your own background, you know, the position of the researcher.
Liked your PhD, particularly liked this bit.
Particularly,
That's exactly what you've just been talking
I
about.
laughed out loud and highlighted it. I said, I discovered that the voice is so powerful that it could awaken the dead.
Yeah, I was talking about my background, and I was talking about two statements that I heard early in my own musical life that really not only did sort of influence and form the work of my PhD, but it had influenced my own singing and playing. I was also a piano player in so many years, and not in a positive way. And the first one what we talked about a bit earlier, this thing of, you know, you're such a classical singer, you have such a classical voice, you would be perfect for Mozart or Rossini, but you would never be able to do pop music with that instrument. And this idea that I was born, not only either you are born to be a singer or you're not born to be a singer in a way, and that you are sort of not only that, but that you are born to become a specific type of singer, like suitable to one fixed repertoire. And that was like determined before you even were born, you know, this sort of idea. And that was really like conflicting for me, because I had this secret dream of doing accordion and sounding crazy. And I was a rebel since I was little, but I was so trained, and also within my musical context, to be quiet, sing high pitch, being soft, not use what I call any like metal to the sound or like raw sounds, not very much volume, no chest voice, only head voice or neutral, as I call it, and very specific. And it was so conflicting that I had all these other things in me, but I got this idea that that was not something I was born into. So that was the one statement that sort of has inhibited me, but also has expanded into this research and trying to break those ideas about what voice is.
I
you.
really want to talk about this. I really want to talk about this.
You should let her tell you about the other statement.
And then
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
no,
please.
and then the second statement was this. That was actually in my piano playing days, where I was playing Turkish march or Rondo alla Turca from Mozart. And I remember an authority person, a composer that I really looked up to, came to me and said, if you keep on playing Mozart that way, he will turn in his grave. And that sort of statement was like, I mean, for a 10-year-old loving to play, the 12-year playing the piano.
10.
Yeah, it was, it makes me emotional, because it has influenced so much about what I thought about music. And that was this standard of music so high that even, you know, just sitting down at the piano and rehearsing something, if you were not perfect, if you were not good enough, if you didn't understand the true intention or whatever people talk about from the composer, you will sort of ruin the music, and you will offend the people that wrote it, and you will, you know, that you are sort of a slave, or sort of you have to obey some sort of idea, otherwise you are pissing on art.
Yes, you must be obedient, you must follow the rules, and it's never ever good enough, and yes, don't piss on art.
Okay.
Good for you.
Now I have to.
Good for you.
Now I have to say something, is that I feel so strongly about this. First of all, what a shit.
Yeah.
Because it's completely, it's I very rarely say this, but it's a wrong thing to say, because it's based on nothing. It's like, that's his taste. It's not Mozart's taste, because Mozart can't tell you. And the second thing is, you know, you're playing a piece by Mozart, and given what we know about Mozart's personality, I would imagine he'd love it. He'd be thrilled to bits. He would find it funny. He would, you know, the last thing he would say is, that's not right.
So powerful. I got so annoyed with that.
That was my favourite moment in the podcast. And it was my favourite line from the PhD. We had such a laugh about that. So, you know, I think the take home from this is that to realise that what you think of as vocal expertise, either as a singer or a teacher, is very much shaped by taste, and that is influenced by your listening history, your cultural history, the way you've been educated, the music you like, and so forth. It's so good to investigate your own taste.
Yes. Okay, my final one, my final choice. We have interviewed so many amazing people, and there are many of them that we've had connections with. I don't think I felt more similarity with anyone in just the way that they think as with Claire Underwood, which was this series. And in fact, in this series, we've interviewed Mike Ruckles, we've interviewed Kevin, Michael Cripps, we've interviewed Claire, and all three of them, because they're all vocal coaches, I first of all feel a lot of sympathy and a lot of empathy with them. But Claire, I think we'd met only twice before that interview, and yet everything that she said, I just kept thinking, yes, 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 this is exactly what I think, this is exactly how I see things. So, so many resonances, so many yes moments, and here is one of them. Claire and I are having a discussion.
When I started working in this field, actually, I would say even before then, when I was teaching kids, it became really obvious that the vocal technique stuff is like, I always describe that as the car mechanic bit. I can lift up the bonnet, I can tweak a few things, and we can get the engine running really smoothly. That's fine. Sometimes there are challenges, but fine, we can do that. But actually, I've never quite settled on a percentage, but I think it could be as high as 80% of the job is making somebody feel comfortable in the room. Because if you're not comfortable, that instrument doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and you can't get the freedom from it that you're looking for. And so I within a couple of years of teaching, realised that more of what I was doing was psychology than and safe spacing, if you like. Of course, there are technical challenges. Of course, somebody's going to come into a role where they've got to sing Satisfied, or whatever. We've got a belt right up to the top. Of course, there are going to be challenges, and a big chunk of my job is about finding vocal safety in an exciting performance. That I see as one of the paramount things, that I need to keep them vocally healthy if I possibly can. But the much larger part of the job is them finding themselves in the role and finding the role in themselves and knowing how that fits in. And quite often you've got somebody coming from completely different musical world into a production, and so there's a whole style change going on. There's an awful lot of kind of intricate nuances in there that we have to tease out somehow, and it all begins with the person. You can't do it any other way. I can't do it any other way.
Even if you take what you might consider to be template sounds, like everybody needs to belt, everybody needs to sing legit, everybody needs to whatever it is that people label the sounds with, there is still something that keeps getting missed out, which is, I want your version of that sound. I want your voice making that sound. I don't want somebody else's voice pasted onto you because the teacher has said, oh, that's not belting because it doesn't sound like me.
Right.
Hate that.
Yeah.
So this, to start with, there are parameters within each individual, quote, template sound, where somebody who has a light, bright voice is not going to sound the same doing exactly the same technique as somebody with a heavy, dark voice.
Absolutely.
It's honestly, it's a duh moment, honestly.
It's totally a darn. It gets me riled in terms of individuality of voice, because exactly what you've been describing. Sorry, I interrupted you. It's a good interruption, I think.
Hope so.
Which is that, we hear these sounds, and of course, the cast recordings are thrown at us all the time. They don't necessarily represent what's done on stage, and that's a whole other issue. And then an individual is aiming to produce that sound outcome without a deep enough understanding of what that sound might sound like and feel like in their own voice.
The first thing that I think in that situation is this person was cast, therefore they are a fit for the role. That's one of the most important things that you can say to the person, because it's like, you were cast. So, people have confidence in you and they have faith in you. So that's where you start. But you've just said it's so important that you take somebody back to what they already do.
Yes.
And go, how do we get from there
to where you need to be, not how are we going to add something on to where you already are in this maelstrom of emotion. We can't add something onto it because it's just going to be put on top of a maelstrom of emotion. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you take people back to where they were, because actually where they were is where they were when they were cast.
And that's how they got the job.
Yes, absolutely. And they may now be being asked to do quite different things. I think sometimes there's a difficulty in their perception of why they were cast versus why they actually were cast. So they're trying to hold on to something that they think is the very reason they're there, and that if they drop, they'll lose the job. And actually, sometimes my job is translating. And I don't always know. I wasn't there in the audition room. I try really hard not to be there in the audition room because my anxiety levels go sky high. But trying to translate, what's the essence? What do I see that I understand because I've watched a lot of casts of this show that made them go, okay, here's that. It's not my job to decide what it is, but it's my job to help the performer find that in themselves and let them see that the thing that they're being asked to let go isn't the essence of them. So it's really important, certainly to me, it's really important that the narrative and the characters and the emotion comes slightly ahead of the musical product. That isn't to say we're going to drop the musical ball, it's too important, but it's just slightly ahead of that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, 100% with you. What's also fascinating is, since in a show like Cabaret, the story is so strong and it's so important and it's so emotional, if you did sing one of the songs as a vocal showpiece, it wouldn't fit the show.
That's the problem. That's exactly it. Yeah.
And the audience would then come out of the story and out of the plot and sit back and go, oh, didn't that sound lovely?
Yeah. And where I was going to go with that was, so the singing isn't the goal.
Exactly that.
The singing is the vehicle. Yeah. Listen up, musical theatre singers. This is so important. Sorry, I know you've worked for years and years on your technique, but the singing isn't the goal. The singing it's all about the experience that you, with your colleagues, together with the music and the whole stage performance, are creating and sharing with the audience in the room. That's the goal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You two were having a ball, weren't you?
Oh, we were. Yeah. So there you go. Those are our 6 best bits. These are the ones that we love. Which ones do you love? Because we want to hear. Absolutely. We want to hear which episodes really hit for you. Or even just single lines from something. Because so often you just hear a single line and you go, oh, yes. Yes, I get that.
You had a little resonance moment or a light bulb moment.
Yeah, let us know.
Share it with us.
Absolutely.
We like to get a little bit of reflection back, don't we?
We do.
Yes.
We do. It helps us remember our success. So we will see you next time. We have another guest coming in this series, but we're not going to see who it is.
Thank you, everybody, for your loyalty and for continuing to listen.
Here's to another 5 years. Bye.
This is A Voice, a podcast with Dr. Gillyanne Kays and Jeremy Fisher.